Hey everybody, welcome back. So recently the nice people at Vevor reached out to me and asked me if I'd like to test out their small diesel heater. And I said absolutely, because it's now starting to get pretty cold here in Arizona, at least cold for us. You know, when you're used to 110 degree summer temperatures and it drops into the 40s, that's pretty cold. That's shock to us. Plus I own property in a part of the state that's about 20 degrees cooler here, and my parents live in another part of the state that's also about 20 degrees cooler. This was provided to me by Vevor. I didn't have to pay for it, so it is a sponsored video. And I'm going to do my normal thing here. I am going to unbox it, show you all the parts. We're going to pop over to their marketing information, see what claims they make about it, and then we're going to put it together, set it up, test it, and see if it meets those claims. Let's get it out of the box and let's see what we got. So, first thing at the top of the box, we have some little stretchy hose, bendable hose. Here's a little thing that kind of looks like a muffler. I'll give you better close-ups of these once we get it completely out. Here's another bendable hose. I think that's for the exhaust, because this does have an exhaust. You can't run it inside without exhausting it outside. Let's get it out of there. Oh, there was something in there. There was something in that bottom of the box. I heard it. There's a larger hose. I think that's for where the heat comes out. Now there are other videos on these, and I have watched some of them. Most people are setting this up in like a workshop or a cabin and mounting it kind of permanently, and running the exhaust and the intake. The intake can stay inside your shop or your cabin. The exhaust, which is going to be this, it needs to go outside, and then you can run this coming off the front here. You can run that to some duct work, whatever you want to do to get the heat where you need it. So first thing we see, it's got a little front panel, a little screen with some controls on it. This is where the air comes out. The unit inside here, and I'll show you that in their pictures. I'm going to take the cover off. I'm not going to take the whole thing apart. It just has a finned aluminum burning chamber, and then the air gets pulled from one end through it and out this side, and I think is a fairly decent fan, but we'll find out. But let's get the cover off it, and let's see what it looks like inside. So the cover is held on by 4 clips, and I have very short thumbnails, so it's hard to get under there. You just pop them up, pop the clips off, and then you should be able to lift this cover right off of there. There you go. So there's the cover off. It's just, like 18 gauge sheet metal. And there we have some info here. It says name, car parking heater, fuel, diesel. It is diesel powered. But I have seen some of the other videos where they're using waste oil in it, used motor oil, things like that. It requires 12 volts at 40 watts. But I've heard that 40, it needs more than that to start. Anyway, and it can put out 8 kilowatts of heat, which is quite a bit. Now, one thing I do notice here is they have deburred all the edges of this pretty well. There's nothing sharp there at all. So the gas tank just sits in there loose. There's a fuel pump, electric fuel pump there. The fuel leads right down past the inlet. I don't think that's where that's supposed to go, but it just kind of flops loose. This is the actual part here that does the actual heating, and Vevor sells these separately. There's a glow plug. The electric fuel pump pumps it around down below here and into this inlet chamber, and then you have an air inlet and an exhaust. And it needs to be up high enough that you can get these on and route them someplace else. Anyway, that's pretty much all there is to see inside of it. Really not much. On the back, we have the wires coming out. There is a 20-volt automotive style fuse, and a red and a black for your 12 volts. Vevor's website and their listing for this heater, it is $128.99 right now, but they have given me a $10 off coupon code, which is VVS10 or Victor Victor Sierra 10. I will put a link to this and the coupon code below. Save yourself $10 off it if it's something you need. So they say Vevor diesel air heater, 8 kilowatt, 12 volt, all-in-one bunk heater, large air outlet parking heater with 5-liter tank, LCD switch, remote control, silencer for RV trucks, bus, trailer, home, and shop. And you can see it comes with a bunch of hardware. Comes with the remote, comes with a muffler, an exhaust pipe, some inlet piping, some air outlet pipe that you can use to direct where the hot air is going, and the self-contained unit itself. Rapid heating, LCD monitor, remote control, low noise. Looks like a nice little unit. It's small too, which is really kind of surprising for what it does. Energy efficient fuel pump. Here's a little exploded picture of all the different parts that are in it. Kind of nice. I like to see that. Easy and flexible installation. Now, since they do expect this to be mounted in a vehicle or someplace like that, they expect you to have your own 12-volt power supply. I mean, you got 12 volts in a vehicle, right? If you're not going to put it in a vehicle, you'll have to come up with a power supply on your own. It comes with everything else. So a 12-volt car battery, some type of 12-volt power supply that plugs into your regular AC outlet. Get one. I would suggest you get one minimum of 150 watts, and 200 is probably safer. The difference in cost between 100 and 200 is only a few dollars, so pick up something that you're sure is going to be good enough. Okay, now that I managed to wrestle that back together, and it's not hard to put back together, it's just fiddly because all that stuff sits in there loose and the cover anchors all of it, which means everything that's loose inside has to be in the correct location or the cover doesn't lock down correctly. And you get it all in that position pretty easily, but if you bump it or knock it putting the cover back on, it's not going to fit. So it's just fiddly. It's not hard, and once the cover's on and locked down, it does seem to hold everything pretty well. Like I say, it's a clever design. It's just fiddly to get back together, but fortunately, I don't think the cover is going to have to be taken off very often. Just for people like me who want to know what's inside things and like to know how things work. So let's take a look at what it comes with. So it does come with this stretchy tube. That stretchy tube goes on the front so that you can, pull it out. You can move it up. You can put a duct on it with some directional type vents. This goes on the air intake that's underneath, so it's going to have to sit up enough for you to get something like this in. You can't pinch these off. This exhaust tube, this is the part that you're going to run outside, and it's also going to have to be, bent like that to come up out from underneath. And so yeah, it's going to have to sit up a bit, I think. Then you have the air intake filter, and this can thread on the back. Let me get it out of there so you can see it. This can thread on the back, and there's a little mount in there, I think. You got a bunch of hardware, nuts and bolts, hose clamps to hold it all together. Looks like they give you quite a few hose clamps. That's nice. Enough clamps to clamp that large piece on the front, and then another clamp to clamp a vent on, and then a mount on the back for this. And this is just I'm not going to force it apart, but it's just a kind of a coarse wire mesh just to keep large objects from going into the heating chamber. And then you have a little muffler, and there's another little bracket. Oh, that has a burr on it. Watch yourself on that. That's sharp. I think that's to mount on the back to hold the intake. And then there's this little muffler here. Why it's got this blue sticky tape on it, I have no clue. Just to keep it from getting scratched till you get it, as if anybody's going to care. And that's just to kind of sort of silence the exhaust, I think. That's pretty much all that came with mine, except this little manual. I do want to say it was packaged pretty nicely and got here quite safely. Now, I saw Other reviewers get a much more detailed manual than this one. And this one doesn't really give you much information about assembly. It just kind of tells you how to operate it once it is put together. It comes with a little remote control that you can control it remotely. So I've made a couple minor design improvements. I've shortened this tube up and I've put the intake right off the back. I'm not even convinced this is completely necessary. I also trimmed off some of this part of what goes on the bottom down there just so I could get it up tighter. I think we really need to have 90s on this, and I think that would be an improvement I make, would be just to put a metal 90 up here so that you weren't having to fight these bends around like that. But anyway, that's what I've got for now. Now that I've got that, and you're going to have to disassemble, you're going to have to take the cover off to do this, because it's the only way you're going to get in to tighten these hose clamps. Unless your quarter drive ratchet is a lot tinier than mine, the only way to get in to tighten those is to come in through the side in here or in the other side. It's just almost impossible to do it from underneath. So you need the cover off to do that. So let's finally, I think, let's straighten it back up. Let's stand it back up and let's get it working. Okay, I think I'm ready for an initial startup. I've got some diesel in it. Everything's hooked up, wired. I'm connected to my little 12-volt power supply. And by the way, it has fans in it too. I'll start it up first so you can hear it, so you don't mistake that fan noise for what this is doing. I've got a clamp meter to see how much amp draw we're pulling from it. And I got a temp gauge, and by the way, it is 63 degrees Fahrenheit in my little workshop right now. Let's plug the power supply in and let's see if we can get it started. Okay. There we go. So that's the sound of the power supply fans, if you can hear it. Now, this manual that comes with it, and I'm done bashing the translation in these manuals. We all know what it is. But we have two sets of instructions. One called panel operation instructions, and if you note, it's upside down from what's on there. But if we go back in a ways, then we see a second set of instructions that say operation instructions for parking heater. And now it looks more correct. So let's see what we got there. It says it's 18C right at the moment. And it says boot up operation. In shutdown state, long press the power key for 2 seconds. Try that. 1, 2. Okay, I think that was better. Oh, it started up. In the shutdown state, press and hold both side keys for 2 seconds at the same time. That manually controls the oil pump for oil injection. All right, so I don't see any fuel going through it. So let's try that. That's left and right button at the same time. Okay. I now hear the oil pump, the fuel pump running, but it stopped. Do I have to keep holding it? I don't know. Looks like it's trying to move fuel. Let's keep doing it till I can see fuel actually running down into it. Doesn't matter whether you hold it or not, it only runs for 5 or 10 seconds. Let's count that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe I do need to hold it. Guess you do need to hold it. I don't know how long I'm supposed to do that for. Looks like something's moving around there. Let's try turning it back on. What's the worst that can happen? It can blow up, kill me, and burn the garage down. Okay, starting up. Let's see. Let's see what kind of amperage it's drawing. Let me put this into amp mode. Turn it on. Nope, I heard something light up in there. Am I on AC or DC here? I want to be on AC. On DC, it's on automatic. Pulling about 7 amps right now. I know you can't see that on camera, but trust me, it's pulling 7 amps. Smells like diesel. Pump is running. The pump just barely spits. It just goes puh, puh, puh. So obviously this doesn't use a lot of fuel, not if it's going to produce heat like that. Now it's running a little faster. Still not warm. Now we're getting warm. It's the temperature coming out now. It's about 100 degrees there now. Fan spinning up even more. 110 degrees Fahrenheit, of course. Sorry for you UK guys, you metric guys. Fans are really cranking up now. Oh, the exhaust is hot. What's that exhaust thing at? It won't do that because it's chrome. It doesn't like chrome. $128 coming out of there now. What kind of amperage are we pulling? Oh, now we're only pulling about 2 amps. $150 now. Yeah, there's quite a bit of exhaust coming out of there. Too bad it won't take the temperature of the exhaust, but it won't. It doesn't like chrome at all. It just reflects it right back onto itself. 235 Fahrenheit now at that little heat exchanger head, that little finned head down there. 247. Wow. That thing produces some heat. I wish I had one of those little things that tested velocity, you know, airspeed. Can't really hold your hand there now. It's too hot. $221, so it looks like it's right, oh, now $279. It just depends on where I put that. 302, 303, 306. Wow. You definitely want something over here because that's hot. So now I've got doors and stuff open here, so plus this shop has a 4-foot wide hole vented into the attic. But I'm not going to run it much longer without getting that exhaust outside. So I'm on, is H3, is that my, what's my temperature there? Still says 19 degrees. So it's, well, it's warm. It's warmed up here to 78 degrees. In the garage where I tested it before against that back wall, it's now 76 degrees. It's raised the temperature right around me up 10 degrees. So I can, that's max right there, 6. That would be way too much for me. Wow, that is getting very hot. And you can really see the fuel pumping through it now. Let's turn it down. Whoops. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then back to 1. And all that seems to do is control how much diesel fuel goes into it. Fan sounds like it's also slowing down quite a bit. All right, I've convinced myself that this works. So I'm going to shut it down for now. I'm going to get the exhaust out the door so that I'm not breathing whatever it's pumping out. There's actually hardly anything coming out of it now that I've told it to. And the fan is slowing down quite a bit. Holy cow, that works really well. Really well. I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. I'm going to get the cover back on. We'll get the exhaust outside. We'll put it to a real test. One thing to note here before I shut it down, we are reading between 2 and 4 amps draw, or multiply that by 12 for watts, sitting here at its lowest setting with the fan spun down to whatever it is on low. And so there's your 40 watts right there. But at startup it was double that. So anyway, yeah, at startup I don't think, from what I've read and what I've watched on YouTube, it will not start up with a 40 watt power supply. So there you have that. Also, I got batteries in the remote control, and they say to sync the remote on first operation, you simultaneously long press power and the right arrow button. So the remote says waiting, so I'm gonna long press those. Oh, and there it is. It now shows the temperature. Let me get that around so you can see it. So I should be able to go up and down with the remote. Yeah, there we go. Remote tells you what heat level you're at. It tells you what the temperature is, and it tells you the battery power of it. I don't know that I would ever use this, to be honest with you. I'll probably take the batteries out, put it in the drawer, and never get it out again, because all I do is lose it. So, or I'll just put it on its clip and hang it from whatever rack I make for it. Anyway, let's get it all back together and get the exhaust out of the garage so I'm not breathing it. I guess I might as well show you the shutdown before we do that, right? Let's do the shutdown. And you can also set a timer on it so it only runs for a certain period of time. I haven't played with that yet, but let's see if we can find the shutdown procedure here. I think that was back on page 1. Shutdown operation. When on, long press the power key for 2 seconds. So let's do that. Long press it for 2 seconds. Switches says off. And what they're telling you not to do is don't just yank the plug on your power supply, because it wants to run for a while to cool itself off. That's actually working. I mean, it's actually getting kind of warm out here now. I'm standing near where it's blowing out, but that's actually pretty good. I'm going to wait for the fan to completely shut down. In fact, I'm probably going to turn it off, go in and have another cup of coffee, and come back out because I don't want to touch that exhaust pipe while it's that hot. Okay, I don't know if you can see it. Let me grab my light. But I have got this drained right down. Slosh it around a little bit. There we go. I have got this drained just down to the point where the fuel hose will not pick it up anymore. And there's at least a cup of diesel in there that it's going to stay in the bottom, because that's about ½ inch up the side. It might even be more than a cup, I don't know. But I want a true test of this, so now that I have it down at that level, I'm going to put 1 quart of fuel in it. Okay, this is 1 quart of diesel fuel. Let's see if I can do this one-handed without making a giant mess. Yeah, it's a hospital drinking cup. I like the things. I save them whenever I get them, which isn't very often because I'm almost never in them. So for those of you interested, it is 55 degrees and pouring rain in the Sonoran Desert today. I'm going to shut the garage on that exhaust hose, and we're going to fire this thing up. Okay, that is my test setup. In a minute and a half, it will be 12:39, or excuse me, in a minute and a half, it will be 12:40. Let's turn it on and get it running. I guess I could use the remote for this. I never even thought of that. Let's try it. It's sitting right here. Let's see if I can start it up with the remote. Here it is right here. Hold power for 2 seconds to turn it on. Did that work? That worked. So slight change of setup here. I noted a burning smell, and I forgot there's a rubber seal that runs along the bottom of that garage door, and it was melting it. So I got a piece of fairly heavy wall steel tube to run that exhaust through. I think that will probably be good enough, but I will monitor it. It's now 12:49, almost 12:50, so we're right around 10 minutes in. Notice this thing powers up on H3 on its heat level 3, which it goes from 1 to 6. And I just checked the temperature in there. It's back to 330 degrees, so it's blowing out some pretty warm air. I don't think it's really fair to test how much it can change the temperature in this 1-car garage with a draft, that big coming in on a cold day. So I think what I'm going to do is just assume that you're in a much, much better situation with me as far as drafts, being sealed up. And let's turn it down to its lowest, and let's see how long it'll run on its lowest. So I'm going to go from, oops, went the wrong way. There we go, H1. So that's its lowest setting. Let's see how long it'll run on that, on 1 quart of diesel fuel. So one thing I think that is interesting to note is the air temperature seems to be pretty much the same no matter what heat level it's set to. The higher heat levels just pump more air through. And obviously to maintain that heat on lower settings, it has to slow the fan down. So that's pretty interesting. And at this level, in like a small cabin or a small enclosed area, that is not loud enough to really, I wouldn't think it would bother anybody. Certainly wouldn't prevent a normal conversation. Okay, for those of you that are interested, this is what it looks and sounds like outside at the muffler. It is not loud at all. And I am going back in again because I'm already wet. Okay guys, it is almost 10 after 4. I am done for the day. I have taken this piece of square tube to tacked up, ready to go bumper almost. I only got to put some mounts on the back of it, then weld it all up. I got my end caps on. I got my shackle mounts tacked in. I got the receiver hitch in. And that little heater is still cranking out the heat. It has been 3.5 hours on 1 quart of fuel, and it's still going. Let's see if we can see how much is left in it, because I'm out of gas. I'm out of fuel for the day, even if it's not. I want to go in and relax, and it may have outlasted me today. Can you see down in there? Let me see if I can get the camera and the light in a position. See down in there? It is right at the point where it is gonna start thinking about running out. At the speed it's going, I'm bet it would easily go another half an hour, but I'm not gonna let it run unattended, and I'm not gonna stay out here for another half an hour. So I'm gonna come out tomorrow. I'm gonna start it up, let it run until it runs out, and we'll just add that time on to this 3.5 hours. And also what I'm thinking about doing, since I'm going to be out here again tomorrow welding that bumper up, I'm going to put another cord in it and run it on full blast, assuming I can stand to be out here with it running full blast. And we'll see how long it runs on the highest setting. So going to pack it in for the night, and I will finish this part tomorrow, and then we'll do the full power test. All right, next morning, it is cold and wet, probably 57, 58 degrees, rained all night, rained a lot into the morning, finally has stopped. It is, can you see that? It is just about 10 to 10, maybe a minute ahead of that. Let's get this started up. And I'm gonna have to leave this door partially open today because I've got a lot of welding on that bumper to do. I've got my exhaust fan sitting over here, so I'll probably prop the door open with the bucket that I'm sitting on. But first off, let's fire this up. Let's get it going. I'm going to use the remote here, which I find works perfectly. So just press and hold on for a couple seconds. And there it is, fires up to power level 3 when you first turn it on. And I'm going to turn it down, if it'll let me, right off the bat, to 1. There we go, we're at heat 1, and we're just going to add this time into the 3.5 hours from yesterday, so we know how long it will run on 1 quart of fuel at its lowest setting. After it runs out, I am going to fill it back up with another quart, and I'm going to run it on full power. I may regret that, but then again, with the door having to be open, and I should be okay. Hopefully it can't put that much heat back into where I'm going to be working, and I am going to be wearing a welding apron with sleeves, so we'll see. I'm going to let it run anyway. We'll see how long. We'll add this time into the 3.5 hours from yesterday, and then we'll do the full power test. Okay, so this now has just shut off. I mean, literally in the last 10 seconds. I felt it. It was only blowing warm, not hot. And I just heard the pump quit, and we are at 11:07. I'm gonna forget about the 7 part and call it 11:05. And what is that? What was that? 70 minutes today plus 3.5 hours from the other day. So 4.5 hours, 4 hours and 40 some odd minutes. Anyway, you count it up for me. I'm out in the garage. So anyway, that was a long time on 1 quart of fuel on low. Let's look inside and see if I guessed correctly about where the fuel would be at empty when I did it the other day. And yeah, look at that, almost a perfect guess right at the bottom of that inlet hole. So I think that's a pretty accurate guess of how long it'll run on low on 1 quart, 32 ounces of fuel. I am going to go ahead and I am going to put another quart of fuel in it, and I am going to run it on high, and we'll see how long she runs on high. Okay, I got my 32 ounces of fuel in it. I only spilled a little bit, and you'll be happy to know it just safely went right directly on the running power supply, so that's good. Let's start it back up. Got the remote, gonna press and hold. And there we go on H1, and I am going to turn it up to H6. That's full power, and of course you can use the buttons on the front panel if you want. And we should start hearing the pump running here any second. There it goes. Don't know if you can hear it, but that's that thump, 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 thump sound. That's the fuel pump running. So, and the time is, well, I probably turned it on right around 10 after. It's now 12 after. 12 after 11. And we're going to see how long she runs on the highest heat setting. Okay, I stepped out back to test fit my bumper, and when I came back in, this had shut off. It is now almost 2 o'clock straight up, so figure 5 to 2, thereabouts. I'll put down in the comment section or in the description how long that was. And let's check to see where we are in the tank. I'm pretty sure we're going to be right at the exact same spot. I gotta tell you, I sure am glad this thing is off, because on high, even with this big gap down here and the exhaust fan running at times, it has made the inside of this garage utterly miserable. I mean, I've had to fully open the door a couple of times to cool the place down, because that is way too much heat for a one-car garage size shop. Way too much. So this was a fun little test and review for me. The last 2 days it has been pouring rain in my town, and I have been out in my shop fabricating the front bumper for my Jeep, and I've had this thing running the whole time doing the fuel consumption tests and just to keep the chill off out of here in the pouring rain. And it ran perfectly the whole time. I didn't have a single issue with it. The remote control worked perfectly. This is a really super nice little solution for making heat in a small shop, garage, something like that. It is small, it doesn't use a lot of fuel, and I ran it on clear diesel or on-road diesel as opposed to red dye diesel. And the only reason I did that is because there's nowhere nearby for me to get red dye diesel. And any money I'd save by buying off-road red dye diesel and not paying the tax on it, it would cost me in gasoline or more to drive there to get it and come back. So if you use this on red dye diesel or on clear diesel, you should get years and years of use out of it. If you're going to run it off waste oil, filter that waste oil really good and plan on every few months you're going to have to take it apart and clean the tar and stuff out of the combustion chamber and off the igniter. I came from a place where every shop I used to work in would have a waste oil heater, and we had a company that would come out every 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and they'd take them apart and clean them out because we were pouring used motor oil in them. So filter it really well and plan on cleaning it. Maybe consider mixing it with regular diesel. And but yeah, just keep that in mind if you're going to try and run it on waste oil of any kind. It's almost a turnkey solution out of the box. They do call this a car parking heater, so Vevor does expect you to have your own 12-volt power supply. I mean, you got a vehicle handy, so you got 12 volts, right? If you're going to use this in your shop or as a portable heater like I'm planning on, and you're going to see another video on this heater coming up, I'm going to build a small frame for it to turn it into a true portable solution with a place to hold a power supply and a battery, some place to mount the exhaust to and the inlet to, and a handle to carry it. Because right now these handles just hook to this sheet metal cover, and it's only held on with these wire clips. So I want to turn it into a true mobile heating solution. So plan on seeing a second video of that coming up, and I will also cover how well it's been working since then, because I plan on using it since it did make it so pleasurable out here in my shop. So all you really got to do when you get this thing is hook up the air inlet, the exhaust, run the exhaust someplace so you're not breathing it, press the button, and you're heating. You can use the different heat level settings on it, or you can set it to a temperature you want it to maintain. And you can even hook something like this up to the front to direct air where you want to go. So I really like this. I think it's a great little product for the price. I don't know how you could possibly beat it for what it costs and how small it is and how economical it is. Thanks to Vevor for sending this out. I really do appreciate it. I've enjoyed it a lot. I'm going to keep using it, and I'm going to make another video on it. Thanks to everybody for watching the video. Please like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.